Hello, this is Dr. Kurt Stahora, the Niagara Global Tourism Institute Scholar and Director of Research. We're going to be sharing with you one of the trends, and that is the concerns regarding the workforce in the hospitality and tourism space. It's something that's affecting travel and tourism around the world. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and please feel free to leave some comments below. Thank you.
And welcome back, everyone. Our discussion topic today will be about the workforce and workforce shortages in the tourism and hospitality sector. Without further delay, let's hop into the first question to the group. What has been the fallout in the tourism and hospitality sector post-COVID?
I'll take that from the United States and Canada's perspective, although I have a more narrow view. A very narrow view from yesterday. We had a job fair in the building that I'm in, Trek, which is right on the Canadian border in Niagara Falls, New York. And I'd say the turnout of job seekers was disappointing. We had a lot of employers here ready, willing, and able to hire, and not too many people came in looking for jobs. So I think the fallout of COVID has been that a lot of people have exited the workforce, especially people my age that chose to retire rather than hang around with the restrictions. And then to backfill those jobs, people have moved up into more senior positions, and that leaves a dearth of really entry-level people. And I think that's the problem we're seeing in tourism in the United States and Canada, is we just still don't have enough people to man up properly in hotels and restaurants.
All right.
Russell,
Okay, yep.
Maybe before we go to Asia, Russell was here yesterday for the job fair, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we're seeing.
Yes, absolutely. I think, for speaking in our neck of the woods here in Niagara Falls, the 2021 season was everyone assumed there were going to be rebound years, which they did. Numbers rebounded heavily, a lot more drive-in visitation for the region. The issue was just the lack of a workforce. Some hotel properties were operating at 80% capacity just because they couldn't find enough folks to hire during that season. We have general managers who typically their responsibilities wouldn't be making beds at 10:30 at night. You just had to assume this responsibility. So everybody was expecting this big rush back to reopen, and it just hasn't been the case with the workforce coming back. The labor numbers have been climbing, but our sector has been the slowest to recover compared to others around the world and around the country here. So it's definitely still a head scratcher for a lot of hoteliers, a lot of attractions where they're open for business. And right now we're creeping up on our busiest season of the year, our summer season. And it's a struggle to get folks back into the industry.
I agree with you, Roscoe. I mean, taking it from an Asian perspective, especially from Vietnam, a lot of people left the hospitality and tourism line and went back to their countryside, to their agricultural industry in Vietnam. That was a lot more sustainable during the COVID period of time. So right now, the major cities in Vietnam, for example, Da Nang, Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, they're finding a real tough time to get people back into the hospitality line. I think that's a perennial problem that's worldwide. Whereas in Singapore right now, Singapore has lifted its lockdown, and now people can travel to and fro from Malaysia. For the hospitality line, Singapore has always relied a lot on Malaysians to come in to fill the hospitality positions here. So now with the lockdown being lifted and there's free entry between both countries of Malaysia and Singapore, a lot more people are coming back from Malaysia to Singapore to work, because obviously the Singapore pay is a lot better than the Malaysian pay. So Singapore doesn't really have that much problem. The Singapore Tourism Board recently relaunched Singapore's tourism image. They've come up with a new video. And I suppose that's going to make a lot more people excited about the tourism line, and that will probably get more people back to the hospitality line to work. That's what I'll say. Thanks.
So in Europe, first of all, the crisis has accelerated the need for a change in the sector. Before the pandemic, the situation was not ideal, and some voices were already super loud and loud enough to push towards new working conditions. In our post-COVID world in Europe, employees do not want any more long working hours with breaks or precarious work. So according to various surveys that were conducted all over Europe, employees seek new work-life balance. In France, for instance, we are missing more than 200,000 jobs because people has left the business, like in other continents that you mentioned just now. And the shortage of labor force is so crazy that I could mention one terrific example. I was in London in a couple of weeks ago, in early April, and in an iconic property like the Savoy, the American bar is now closed because they lack employees. There are missing a couple of them, so they are unable to run the bar, which is absolutely an awful situation because it's such a great property and a great bar. So people have shifted sectors for more conventional business line with regular working hours, and this is a major concern for the sector in Europe as well.
And that's a great insight from both Dr. Pang and Dr. Ferry. So just to follow up on Dr. Ferry's mention about, there's always been a discussion about better workforce standards and better work-life balance in the industry before COVID. And when COVID hit, we've seen it before. We've run a workforce program here at the NGTI for about 6 years now, and we follow up with some of our students where folks have transitioned out of our sector because the rise of remote working has given some of our folks a better option. I spoke to some of our students. They went from working frontline hospitality, say at a front desk as a front desk associate in a hotel. They now work customer service for Geico, which is an insurance company in the United States, and they work remote. So, you know, the last 24 months, 30 months have shown that folks can work from home, better options. If I'm working from home, transportation is an issue. Daycare is less of an issue. So other industries have pivoted to offering a remote setting where for hospitality and tourism, we have to be in person. So now we see an exodus of folks moving in, and I've seen the customer service side. We work so well in industry about pushing customer service and the customer experience. Those are skill sets that are well sought after in other industries that provide a remote option. That now we're losing some of our folks to better hours, better paying jobs. So, and then to segue into what Dr. Pang said about the kind of the image or the branding for the hospitality and tourism industry, that's something that has to happen more so because of that open competition, where you have to be able to show tourism and hospitality as a viable career option. Now that there are other industries giving that work-life balance, giving that remote option. It works for it's relevant to our entry-level workers, but also to students at university who are now, you know, kind of rethinking, is tourism and hospitality a viable career path? But it's up to the industry and stakeholders to better promote what that career path looks like. And just hopping on to our second question, what are companies in the sector presently doing under the circumstances?
Well, I'll kickstart with that with what's going on in Asia. As I'll say, Asia is very different because we've got many different countries and different ways of dealing with the shortage of manpower. In Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi in Vietnam. Of late, I've seen a lot of social media posting by the hospitality companies. They are really encouraging a lot of students and young people to get into the hospitality line. Once again, trying to get that excitement. Very nice advertisements. They are not only targeting hospitality students, which they know they are not enough, but they're also trying to leverage on other students from other disciplines as well. Whereas for Singapore, I would say that they are also trying to encourage students to come in as well. I know that during the COVID period in Singapore, enrollment for such programs really dipped quite a fair bit. And right now the schools, I won't say just the sector itself, the schools are really encouraging a lot of students to join back the hospitality industry, and they are trying to impress upon the people that, hey, this industry is going to start all over again. If you want to climb the corporate ladder in the hospitality line, this is the right time. So because the whole sector has been rebooted, it's a golden opportunity for you to join and accelerate your career. Yeah. Thank you. That's all I have. Yeah.
And how is it in Europe, Dr. Ferry?
So I will provide you with some examples of the policy put in place by some companies. So for example, the hospitality brand, 25 Hours, they are adjusting their working conditions to the new needs of the employees. So if you apply for a job in that company, you will work 4 days a week with no break. So you will work in a single shift. So that's a major positive element here. Of course, it is a successful formula, as the company has filled all its vacancies. So, that's a very important shift. You work 4 days a week. That's a great policy. Other companies put in place more disruptive measures, even if this one that I mentioned is already disruptive. And these disruptive policies change their DNA. And to put employee at the center of their activities with a training program, for instance, or real CSR policy. And I would like to give you an example. Some companies, they choose, and big hotel companies, they choose to release employees to work for charitable associations for a couple of days a year or several days a month. So the company will still pay them, but it is part of the CSR initiative, and as well as it enriches the employee experience. So in one word, employee branding has become a must. Of course, money is the central topic, and some negotiations are on their way in France, for instance. We will see in a couple of weeks if it was successful, and we have an eye definitely on that, because for low entry job, that's a major issue, as well as for management position. This is something which is super important at the moment.
And you definitely like to see the creativity, because your back is kind of against the wall trying to compete for a workforce. So it's good to see creativity. The 4-day work week. I've seen it work well in other industries and other parts of the world where everybody appreciates a 3-day weekend. So it's always a good option. Pat, any insight on what we've been seeing in the US, Canada area?
Similar stories, I think. One thing that's become pretty obvious is that there isn't one solution to this problem, and it's going to take a wide variety of solutions. Obviously, you think raise the pay. Well, that's not working. So it's got to be in combination with other things, making the job seem more attractive. Training. So if you hire a candidate this year that 3 years ago you wouldn't have hired because they didn't meet your ideal candidate qualifications, well, you have to spend more time training this person so that they can get up to standards with your brand. So there's Justin's mentioned social media. There's going to have to be a wide variety of solutions for the hospitality sector, because as Roscoe pointed out, there's a lot of options out there for other kinds of jobs and other industries. The competition is just ratcheted up 4 or 5 levels from where it was 3 years ago. There's going to be a lot of different kinds of solutions. One that you would think, sitting here in Niagara Falls, there's probably 58 hotels within walking distance of where I sit right now. This would be an ideal opportunity to open a daycare facility to serve the collective. Not every market has that opportunity, but daycare, as Roscoe mentioned, is a big concern. That may not be the same kind of concern if you work at home for an insurance company. So those kinds of things are going to have to come out and be developed pretty quickly, because as Roscoe again said, we're approaching the peak tourism season here in Niagara Falls, and we need an awful lot of people to gear up for the peak. And last summer we did see a return of tourists, and but we couldn't open everything up because we didn't have enough people. So there's going to have to be a lot of solutions to this problem.
And on the entry level side, the initial response was, like Pat said, hey, well, let's just pay more. We talked to other hoteliers in the area, and I'll give an example for housekeeping. They raised their hourly rate by about $3.50 from last year. And they're still struggling. So it isn't just, it's so many different options that play a role in it. Once again, going back into the entry level side, when I talk to local hoteliers here, they're changing their pace. And when they hire individuals, typically when we're coming into our busy season here, you're hiring somebody specifically for one department. Because of the shortages, they've been more open to cross-training in multiple departments, because they're going to know that we're going to hit a shortage sooner or later, that I would rather have a more versatile employee who can hop in and out of other departments. That's a great benefit for somebody just entering the industry. Well, they're getting training in multiple facets of the hotel that traditionally they were you're stuck in one department. So in terms of eventually moving up as a career path, it provides a more well-rounded employee when they have experience in different sectors. On the mid-level side, the management side, we've seen more developers or hoteliers tapping into non-traditional students. So some hoteliers are tapping into more business students, accounting students, because they love that accounting base. They're always saying, well, we can teach the hospitality side, but really having someone with an accounting base adds so much versatility to what we have in the hotel. So you see a lot of hotel operators or folks in hospitality and tourism jumping into more wide majors when it comes to the business sector. So, once again, they're being creative with what they have, but it's always good that they're thinking outside of the box in terms of recruitment and retaining individuals. Going into our last question, this is probably a tough one to answer, but what does the future look like in this field with respect to staffing? And Dr. Ferry, I'll lead off with you on this one.
Yes, so this is the big question, and how the future looks like is the question. If there is one topic, this one. I wish I had a crystal ball. I think the pattern of being open 7 days a week is now gone. If companies like bar, nightclubs, or restaurants do not find enough employees, they will be forced to change their working patterns and remain closed for 2 consecutive days each week. So I think we are almost there, particularly in Europe, and we can see that even in famous tourist destinations. So of course, salaries will raise for sure, as you mentioned, we all mentioned, it is a crucial leverage. We have seen that it's not the only one, but it's a very good one to motivate people. Hence, as consequences for the clients that we are as well, we will pay more for the same services. So the consequences will come later as well for us as customers. So we need to keep an eye on that pulse as well, on the rate for the same services. On the other hand, on the medium term, from a medium term perspective, automation is on its way. So some tasks will be probably affected by this trend, which will lead to another challenge. So we have many things on our table to deal with, many concerns, but it's the right period to be part of this industry because everything is changing so fast, everything is so complex that we need to tackle several issues all day long, so we will never get bored. So this is the right timing to integrate and to come and reach that industry.
And Dr. Pang?
Okay. As what Dr. Ferry has mentioned, I'm going to take the opposite view to a certain extent. Once again, I say this is my opinion, and my opinion only because I can't look into a crystal ball as what Dr. Ferry has mentioned. I reckon that in Asia it's going to be somewhat different. I feel that people here are very conservative in the sense that they would reckon that COVID might still return. We're really not out of the woods yet. So that's one issue. So given this issue, I think parents are not going to tell their kids to go and study hospitality, or people are going to take a chance to go back to hospitality. So it's also the cultural phenomena here. I mean, always in Asia, as you would know, if you're in the service line, it's not really the most professional line, like a lawyer, a doctor, or engineer. So I think people will be very skeptical about coming back to the hospitality line. So also on this note as well, I'll say that in Europe, they're paying a lot more, but I don't think in Asia they'll pay that much because they're still recuperating from the losses that they have incurred during COVID. So pay is still going to be pretty much the same, and that's not going to entice a lot of people to join the hospitality line or to come back to the hospitality line. I know that the companies might be making a lot of noise, might be putting up a lot of advertisements to get people in, but once again, I'm very skeptical about whether people would actually want to come back to the line. As mentioned earlier on, people have tasted the forbidden fruit of trying something else. You mentioned about that, Roscoe, right? I mean, doing insurance line, I don't think a lot of them want to come back because they have found maybe cushier jobs working from home, and they're going to think twice about coming to join the hospitality line. So I reckon it's going to be a real tough time for the hospitality line to really ramp up to what it really wants the Asian manpower filling for hospitality and tourism.
Justin brings up a good point, and that's that we still have COVID. So again, I'll reference Niagara Falls, but we normally get in non-COVID years, get a lot of Asian and visitors that we don't anticipate have them returning this year. So even though we'll probably have a pretty good season, it'll be a different kind of tourist here and not as many. So mostly North Americans will be in Niagara Falls, less international visitors, so the numbers will be down. And we're going, that gives us time to ramp up. It probably gives us another year to ramp up. Mm-hmm. The crystal ball, everybody's got their own opinions, and I think there's going to be a change in the tourism sector. I think it's going to be very difficult to attract employees, and therefore it's going to cost more. The price of your holidays or your vacation is probably going to increase over the next couple of years, and the employees that work in the tourism sector will probably come at the expense of other hospitality industries that are really not tourists. Restaurants in your local town might, as Martine said, might not be able to open 7 days a week because they just don't have enough people, because the people have gone to the tourist area where they can get more money, and then that money comes from someplace and it comes from the tourists, so it's going to be a little more expensive. That's my crystal ball prediction.
It's always an evolving approach. I'll leave us with one experience I've had. Justin, you talked about the branding and how the industry and even local municipalities have to more openly support career paths in tourism and hospitality. I had somebody representing the waste management service, speak to a group of students, and they led with the fact that they are, you can almost call them, they didn't call themselves pandemic proof, but the fact that they are a staple service that is needed regardless. And they used hospitality as the opposite spectrum of, hey, they're using this as a marketing or branding for their industry now. The fact that when tourism and hospitality and other industries shut down, an industry like waste management, we stayed open the whole time. So other staple industries that are now using this opportunity to better brand themselves and are using our industry as well. Look at them, they shut down for a whole year. How could you consider them as a viable option? So there's a lot of work that has to be done on our end to better shape, one, the opportunity, but also how do we diversify our outreach to different points of the workforce. I always stay on the optimistic side like anything else. We're coming into, once again, another hopefully busy season in Niagara Falls and the Western New York area. So would like to revisit this discussion in about a month or so to see where we're all at, and hopefully we're in good standing as far as our workforce here in all parts of the region. So thank you again for joining us today and to give some perspective from around the globe in terms of our workforce situation in the sector. And tune in next time. We're going to be covering the STR data for the first quarter of 2022. All right. Well, we'll see everybody. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. See you.
All right. So I'll have Alexandra edit that out. But it's yeah, the 4-day work week. That's good to hear. I've heard other industries talk about it's. When I first heard about it, I'm like, wow, that's pretty daunting as far as the daily commitment. But when you look at it, just from, if you get in a good groove in the office, you're working 10 hours anyway, 11 hours anyway. So that, especially with kids, that 3-day work week for family life, that ends up being a nice perk.
Great. Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, that waste management thing was it caught me out of, it came from left field when she specifically said, because I think the woman knew we were representing tourism and hospitality. When she was speaking to the students, she's like, well, unlike other industries like tourism and hospitality, they're a staple industry. They stayed open the whole pandemic, and they actually needed to hire more because consumption went up during the last 24 months. So they're using that as a branding thing where we're pandemic proof because people always need us. Yeah.
And takeaways probably went up as well. I mean, so there's a lot more garbage to be thrown out. So, hey, that's the right industry to be in. Sanitation and garbage disposal.
I'm actually sitting on a panel this afternoon, all about workforce. So we have somebody from NYU's Tisch School of Hospitality, somebody from Florida Atlantic University talking about different layers of the tourism and hospitality sector, and the work-life balance pops up is all the time. It's all the time right now, even more once again, because the gig economy has gotten a lot stronger over the last 24, 30 months. So that's what's, they did a survey at Florida Atlantic. I think they surveyed over 1,000 hospitality workers, and it's the work-life balance, it's the better scheduling, because there are options now, and we've proven, it has shown that there are options, especially remote, that folks can jump from industry to industry.
Yeah, I reckon that hospitality students, they are very well versed. They definitely have the transferable skills to move from one industry to the industry. I know so many hospitality students who have transited from hospitality to nursing, healthcare, finance. Yeah.
Here they shifted to real estate. Real estate.
Real estate.
Just hire tons of our students. That's crazy.
So where the money is actually.
Yes, and more particularly luxury real estate. So, voilà, they do appreciate the way we educate our students, and they could apply their skill set to another business line. So we have a lot all the time. So that's crazy.
Well, even recruitment for, once again, we're College of Hospitality, Sport and Tourism Management for Niagara University. If you're a parent and you're helping your child decide what field they want to go into, you just saw the industry shut down for 18 months, 24 months, or at least being hard to recover. as a parent, you're kind of nervous about your son or daughter going into industry that almost flatlined for 2 years. But on the
Absolutely. I
plus
mean, that's,
side, it's good opportunity if you can
Absolutely.
learn everything. So there's a balance for everything.
you know, in Asia is that the hospitality line has always been, well, I won't say the hospitality line, but parents play a big role in the where the kids go. You know, they are always at the forefront of making the decisions for the kids. So the parents are going to tell the kids, hey, why are you going to go into a line that is not sustainable? I mean, go do something like digital marketing, because digital marketing really went up with a lot more online sales, especially during COVID. Go into that, and it's technology, so it's definitely going to thrive. Why do you want to go into a hospitality line that might be affected? And we're still not out of the woods yet.
And the industry itself as a profession was already hard to recruit into as far as a concentrated pipeline. And then after this, it got even worse because now you're giving more ammo on the other side that, once again, it flatlined for 18 months.
Mhm.
It's not as stable as we think it is, but you know, it's our push to some of our students here is that it's a skill set that if you learn to harness it and develop it, you can take that skill set anywhere in the world. Every corner of the world has hospitality and tourism in it, that you can make a living anywhere with it. But we have to be open to actually do it.
Yeah.